Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and we are doing another follow along, and this time we're dealing with volumes and specifically with persistent volumes. So we have our two environments, and we're going to use our microK8s environment here. And so what I want you to do is make your way back over to here, and within microK8s, we need to enable storage. So if we type in microK8s status, there is an option to have a storage here. And so all this storage thing does is, I'm just trying to find it here. Here it is. So it will create us a storage class. And the reason why we're doing this is because when you usually have a storage class, you generally are linking to something external. So it could be like AWS EBS or Azure Disk or something like that. And just to make this easy for development, microK8s has this storage class that is locally on the machine. So we're not going to learn how to create a storage class because it's going to create one for us, but we are going to use it, and it's just going to make learning persistent volumes and persistent volume claims a lot easier. So we'll type in microK8s, and we'll type in enable and then storage, and that will enable our storage. So it's just going to go ahead and create us a storage class there. Okay, and so here it says it created an RBC authorization, so a cluster role binding, service account, storage class, stuff like that. It says it'll be available soon. So now what we'll do is type in kubectl, and we'll say get maybe SC for storage classes. Yep, there it is. And so this is the name. It's called microK8s host path. And so the idea is that on this node, we will have our volume or our something mounted to our directory here, okay? And so now that we have that out of the way, I'm just pulling up the instructions I wrote earlier. And so what we'll need to do is create a persistent volume. So a persistent volume is basically, it's saying, okay, this is the volume, and it uses this type of storage class, all right? And so that's what we're going to be doing there. And ignore my Stream Deck. I really hate how it always pops up, but I'm just going to say remind me later. Okay, I usually don't get pop-ups in my videos, but there's one there. So what we'll do is go and type in persistent volume and see if we can just pull some code from the Kubernetes website to start with, okay? So we'll just load that up here, and I'll just scroll on down, and I'm just looking for persistent volume. Example of persistent volume. So we have here's one. Okay. So what we'll do is just basically kind of grab this one. This is clearly not enough, but I do have my code off screen here that we will bring in here to make it a bit easier. And so I'm going to make a new file here, and we're going to call this pv.yaml. All right. And then we'll go ahead and paste that on in there. And so we'll just take a look at what we have. So the first thing is we'll need metadata. I'm going to call this my PV. I really don't like when people type foo. And we're going to apply labels type local. I don't know if we need to have the label there, but that's the example that they are using for microK8. So if we typed in microK8's storage, they might show an example there. Let's see if there's an example here. No, but we might type in like tutorial. It's the same page here. And it could be this one. No, but that's okay. Like, I just have it off screen. I just like to show you where I'm grabbing the code from, so you get very good at Googling too, because really with Kubernetes, you have to spend a lot of time looking for stuff because the main docs is always kind of not that great. So the storage class name is going to be the storage class that we want it to be. So this is going to be microK8s. I'm going to copy and paste it so I don't type it wrong here. And so we have kubectl sc, and we'll go grab its name from down below and paste it in the storage class here. And then we need to specify the capacity, so how much we're going to reserve of space for this. And so I'm going to do capacity storage, and we'll say 1 gigabyte, okay? Making sure I spelled capacity right. And then we might want to specify our access mode. So the access mode is like, can you read and or write, okay? And make sure you set those to 2 spaces over there. And so we'll say access modes. And I think this is an array, so we'll do hyphen there. We'll say read, write once. Claim reference, we don't need that. But what we do need is to set the host path. And so we're going to actually say for this storage volume, where is it going to be accessible on our node or our local machine here? And so I'm going to say mount data. And so that means not within the pod, but here in our developer environment, our virtual machine, on the / mount data, that is what will be shared to our pods, okay? So this looks okay to me, but I did type a lot by hand, so hopefully it is all correct. And so what we'll do is go ahead and deploy this. Okay, and so we'll type in K8s, PV, YAML, and it's created our volume there. And so what I'll do is go ahead and we will go view the contents of it. So we'll say kubectl PV, or sorry, get PV. I gotta spell it right. Okay, so what we see is the name, the capacity, the access mode, whether to retain it, is it available? But notice there is no claim, so technically it's not linked to anything right now. And so that will be what we'll do next with the PVC, the persistent volume claim. Let's get a bit more of a description here to see if there's anything interesting. And so we'll just expand that up. And it's pretty much, you know, same information, nothing super exciting. So now what we need is a persistent volume claim. Okay, and so what we'll do is just go back over here and see if we have an example, and there is one. So what we'll do is go back over here and say new file. We'll say pvc.yaml, and we'll go ahead and paste that. And we need our metadata. I'm going to call this my PVC. We don't care about namespace. We'll put in the default here. And we do need to specify a storage class, so that one will be the same as the other one. So I'll just go over here. Okay. And we'll paste that on in there. And we'll delete that. And then we need to specify the resources. I don't care about the volume name. We don't have to write that in there. It will just set it to my PVC, I think. And so we'll say resources, and we'll tab in, we'll say requests, and then we'll say storage. So we're saying how much we want to request. So I'm going to set it the same value, and this is not going to work because if this is 1 GB and this is 1 GB, it's just taking up too much of the space, and you have to be less than that. But I just want to show you what happens if we match it 1-to-1. Okay, so what we'll do is type in clear, and I'm going to do kubectl apply -f, and then we'll specify K8s PVC YAML. And notice this is my PVC is invalid. Access mode required at least one access mode. So maybe my indentation is the wrong levels, or I deleted it out. Oh no, I didn't even specify it. So we'll go here. These darn spaces. 2. Maybe this little cog will let me set it. Nope. Nope. I just don't feel like looking it up. Okay. So we'll go here and type in storage class name, :, and then, oops, no. We already have that. What we want is our access modes. And it's going to be the same thing, because what it's trying to do is say, PVC is saying, like, tell me what you want. Like, this is what we want. And then the the persistent volume is, this is what we have. And if it matches up, then they will match up via a claim, okay? So we'll go here and paste that in, and I'll go back and hit up. And so it created the PVC, and so now what we'll do is type in kubectl get PVC. I gotta type that right. There we go. And so it says status is bound, and we'll type in PV, and it's bound and it's claimed. Okay, so it did match up. So I don't know, when I was doing this and I had it the wrong size, or 1-to-1, it didn't work. But I guess, like, if we were to set this to be like 2, then I would expect this not to work. So let's just go and change that to do, because clearly that's too large, right? And here it says forbidden, only dynamically provisioned PVCs can be resized. Okay, well, we don't really want to resize it. So what we'll do is delete it first. So we'll say kubectl delete PVC, my PVC. Okay, we'll type in clear. We'll go take a look at the PVC, make sure there's nothing claimed. Not sure how it's claimed when it's not there anymore. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just delete the PV here, and we'll just run them again, okay? Okay, so we'll type clear, and then I'm just going to hit up because I want to run PV. And then I want to see that it is not claimed. And then what we'll do is do PVC. Okay, and then we'll go back to get PV. I'm just going to stretch this a bit larger here. Clear. And notice here, I don't know why it's so hard to read. I don't remember seeing this many columns here, but we have the name. I'm just going to try to expand this a bit more and run this again. Maybe I'll just bump down the font here to make it a little bit easier because I can't see what's going on here with this font this big. So go back to our terminal here. Terminal, where are you? There we go. And we'll just bump this down a little bit. So there we go. That's a lot more manageable. So here we can see my PV, and this one is not claimed, and I guess it's showing up the PVC that we have here, but notice that it's not matching up because it's too large, right? So what I'll do here is I'll change this back to 1, and I'm going to see if I can actually change it. I know it said like before we can't resize it, but maybe we can if it's not claimed yet. And so we'll run that. Field cannot be less than the previous value. So notice here, okay, so I guess you can expand it but not shrink it. So that's fine. So what we'll do is just go ahead and kubectl delete PVC. We'll say my PVC. And we'll type clear. Okay, and so now what we'll do is we will go and then run it again. And actually, before we do that, I just want to shrink it so it's smaller. I'll say 200 megabytes. There we go. And then we'll go back there. Just trying to figure out the bounds of this stuff. So it's claimed, it's bound. So now the only thing that we need to do is we need to actually have a deployment that has a volume attached. So what we'll do is go back to the Kubernetes page here and see if it actually shows an example with the deploy. I think it shows like with a pod, maybe here. Keep scrolling down here. Yeah, and so this is pretty much it. So it says pod, but we can do this with a deploy. And so what we're going to do is go back over here to our deploy up here. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I'm just going to go copy the contents here, make a new file, and call this deployment with PV or storage. And we'll paste that. And we do have some old stuff here that I do not want. So first we will delete, and make sure you put the YAML part on the end of it or it's not going to work properly. It's not for coloring. So obviously we've done a volume mount with a config map, but here we have Sinatra. So I'm going to say Sinatra with volume or storage. Okay. And we're just going to keep up with that. Maybe just say PV, like with PV. Just try not to type 100 things here. Oh, we have our container name. Sure, we'll just update that as well. And this all looks fine. We don't need environment variables. Ports are fine. The readiness probe is fine. So that's what we would have if we had our minimal one from before. And so what we need to do is make it so that we attach a volume to it. So we'll go back over to here and notice that we need to do a volume mount. So we'll go ahead and copy paste that in. That needs to be aligned with the name image within the containers. The indentation is a little bit tricky, but we'll figure it out. So I'll go ahead and paste that on in there. And we'll just fix our indentation. I'm noticing this is all 4 spaces. Okay, and so this should be, I would say like that. That looks okay to me. And then what we need is the volumes part. So we'll copy that. That's going to be aligned with containers. And we probably can just paste it even above to make our lives a bit easier. Okay, and so we have I gotta see what we need to match this up with. So for the volumes part, we'll give it a name like my PVC, and then what we're putting here is my PVC. So we're matching what volume claim we want to be attached or like associated with this actual pod. Okay, and then under the containers itself, this is what we want to define as the mounting directory. So I'm going to just call this mount local data here. And then underneath here, we just want the name. So I'm going to say my PVC. All right, and so this should be the mount directory on the actual container, okay? And so now what we'll do is go ahead and deploy that. So I'll type in kubectl, apply f, deployment, or K8s, deployment with storage. And I got to spell kubectl correctly. And so that's deployed. And so what we'll do is just type in clear. And then I'll just say kubectl get pods so we can see all of our pods. And then I want to describe the one with storage. Notice that we have 2 of them. Maybe we had replicas on 2 here. Yeah, we do. And so I only want 1. So I'm going to scale that down so I don't have to deal with 2. Or actually, we can just probably apply it. Just hit up there, update the value there. Get pods. There we go. And we'll just wait for that to connect. While it's waiting, we can just go ahead and describe it. So this will be for the deploy. Or we can describe the pod as well. We'll describe the deploy first. No, we'll do pod. We'll do pod, and then we'll just copy the name here. And just see like what kind of volume information we can see, if any. So it says persistent volume claim, my PVC not found. So that's an error, and that's why it's not proceeding forward. So we must have spelled something incorrectly. So we'll go back over here to our PVC here, and it says my PVC. So that seems like that should be the name. We'll type in kubectl get PVC, and there it is, my PVC. Persistent volume claim not found. Let me just take a look at my instructions. Well, it looks like it's totally fine. Let's just hit up and see if anything's changed. No, it still can't find that volume. So let's take a look at the PVC volume itself and describe it and see if there's any issues. So it has a volume, it is bound. And we'll go PV. And that looks okay as well. So all I can think of is there's something wrong with my script here. So I'll be back here in a moment and just compare my my old script with this one, okay? All right, I'm back, and so I just carefully stared, and I can see what the problem is. This is MV, and it should be MY. So that's probably what our problem was. And so what we'll do is just type clear and redeploy that, and hopefully it takes effect. Good. And then we'll hit up until we can get to our pod. The pod's going to have a different name, so we'll have to go get PVC, or sorry, get pod. And then from there, we still have 2. One is running, one is probably going to stop. And if there's 2 deployments, I'm just going to double check here. Nope, we only have 1. There we go. And so I'm just going to grab that pod name, and we'll just say kubectl get pod here. And we'll just describe it, make sure there are no issues. Well, got to type it in the right place. We can't do get describe, that makes no sense. Okay, and so here we can see there are no issues. I'm just trying to see if there is the claim. Here it is, read-only, false, persistent volume. So it's all in good shape, so that's good to see. Let's go take a look at what it looks like for the actual deploy. So we'll say deploy, and it's called Sinatra with storage. And there we can see the volume claim information again. Okay, so now the next question is, can we see if our volume is actually working? So what we'll do is we'll go to that directory. So I told you it was local here, mount data. Remember this? If we go back to our PV here, we specified it's here. So we actually have a mount data directory there, and I can just make a new file. So I'll say touch, and we'll just say hello.txt. And we'll do a sudo on that because it just doesn't like if we don't do sudo. So now that we created the file, what we should do is SSH, or I guess I say SSH, but we're actually just remotely connecting to the shell. So we'll type in kube execute -it, and then we need the name of a container, and then we'll have to have bin bash. Notice before we did like sh, we probably do sh as well. It's basically the same thing. In a new tab, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the pod name. So we'll say kubectl get pods, and that is the name of our pod. Just double checking there. Yep. And then we'll go ahead and paste that in here. Oh, sorry, kubectl. And so we're within our actual container now. And so we mounted this at mount, it's being kind of silly here. We mounted this at mount mnt local data. So I'm just going to do ls on here. I don't know why this is kind of being a bit glitchy here. If you notice I'm typing, it's kind of going weird, so I'll have to type it out by hand, no problem. And notice we have hello.txt, and that's within our container. So that's pretty much all we need to know for our persistent volumes. I'm not going to clean this stuff up. I think it's totally fine. It's not going to eat up a lot of our resources here. But yeah, that's it for storage. So just note that you always have to have a persistent volume claim in order to attach a volume. There might be an edge case where you can attach a persistent volume to like static resources with a persistent volume claim, but you always have to have a PVC with a PV with a storage class. Okay.